Thanks, Puneet. I love the design, the typography. I mean, I must
So let's
tell.
face each other only and sit for the fireside.
Oh yeah, yeah. We need the fire also, no? But
Yeah, there's
it's
no
anyway
fire.
quite cold out over here. We need the fire extinguisher also in that case, in case it gets very heated. The discussion. You are very pro this particular bill. Tell me.
So Ritesh, your grilling starts with what do you see on the ground in organizations when they are suffering data breaches? Or do you see that level of seriousness towards compliance? You're called in at the time of investigations. Honestly, organizations at that stage don't even know are they breached, not breached. So do you see that level of seriousness in them?
No, there is no level of seriousness. I think,
I think say that again very loudly.
I don't see any level of seriousness. I don't see any level of seriousness, and I don't see any level of seriousness, okay? And I think, like how the judge mentioned about the data subjects. I think they are the most, they're just least valued. They're literally, the data is there, but the value of that data is more than the value of the human. And now let us just look at one very simple example that why I'm saying this and how it has impacted it. So for example, there's a very, especially for ladies, please pardon me for saying this, but then I think it's very important that I share this information with you. There's a lingerie brand which was breached. I have that data with me. In that data, I have their name, mobile number, email address, what lingerie she purchased, what color, what size, where was it delivered, and what price. Now tell me how scary this is.
Yes, and you think the organization took it seriously when the breach occurred?
I don't think so. We've been talking about the startups being exempted. Why? The boat data breach that happened, uski to puri naiya gir gayi, correct? Boat capsized.
Yes.
7.5 million or 75 lakhs, right?
Yes, yes.
That data is out. Again, was there in the data. Again, the address is there. Now, we are not trying to understand that how it impacts we, the people. We just say, oh, it's breached. How it is impacting me. I just need to go. I mean, let's say I don't have your address. Now, I have your number. Enter, I get your address.
So just, for the audience to understand how the dark web, the deep web works, like for example, you mentioned about the lingerie brand, we were talking about certain other leading brands of wearables wherein there have been breaches. So how does this entire process of a data breach actually compromising an individual? So from the legal perspective, yes, we have understood, but how is it from a technical perspective or the actual perspective, how is it there are people trying to monetize this data? What's actually happening, if you can share your insight as an investigator in this?
Okay, so we are saying every day we are getting certain calls and all that. How it is happening? All these datas which have been breached, earlier, okay, what was my data breach? My name, email, password. At that point of time, what did people think? It was not even informed, especially when LinkedIn had got breached. There were so many that got breached. I'm talking about in the year 2015, 16, 17, 18. People started getting emails that this is your password, and we have installed now a spyware on your device, we know this. What was the first thing that hit the person? Yeah, this is my password. And he would pay those $300 or whatever it is. So this is where it impacted the individual. So pehle na Puneet, it was only till that much part. So now then people came to know, okay, this is all like fake, because thanks to the awareness and everything. And now what has started happening? From one data breach, we have this. From another data breach, we have addresses. From the third data breach, we have this. All we need is a connector. What could be that connector? Your email ID, your mobile number, and now 10 different silos. I just connect all the data, and I can just create your entire profile. Why do we hear about the latest scam that is happening, what we call it as the digital arrest? I don't know if you've heard about it. What is happening in the digital arrest? Like just day before yesterday, that person was made to sit in front of Skype entire night. He said, lock the room and everything. And what happened? They said, okay, now take your Aadhaar card, hold it, take your PAN card, hold it. That was a kind for the KYC verification. All the other details they had, now an identity theft has been performed. So things like these are going on, and with AI coming in, it is just going to get worse. I see the next 5 years, the worst ever era, I would say, for data breaches and for cyber crimes.
So what about, like, I'll just give you an example of a very recent case that I had, where there was this young girl, she faced a digital arrest.
Okay.
And yes, she was made to do her KYC in front of a video, etc. And promptly the very next day, she receives an email of a 10 lakh loan, which has been taken from a bank. And now the bank recovery agents are behind her. So, this kind of a situation, imagine a person who has not taken a loan. So it can happen to anybody. You have not taken a loan, but, in a way you have been videoed everything the way this particular lady was. And she's a young lady, hardly 22-year-old, and a 10 lakh rupee loan taken against her. She was absolutely flustered. And she didn't pay the EMI obviously for 2 months, and then the recovery agents came. She was contesting, I never took this loan, but that really does not seem to work at that situation.
It will never work. What will she do actually? We have seen so many cases, you have fought so many cases. Have you been really able to help these victims? They say it's been your fault. You're talking about this, chalo, like, somewhere she'll say it was a bad, I bought a share and the share price went, and the share got bust. So let us take it that way. In the similar incident, when, you're talking about the lady, a Bangalore-based woman, what happened with her? Same thing, 10 lakhs gone. Except instead of the KYC, what did they take? They told her that you have to strip completely nude. She did that. Why? Because they said you are possessing drugs even on your body. We need to check that. You can go and just Google it. It just happened last week. They said, we know it is like that. You have carried drugs on your body also. We know there is a particular mole, and she was crying and she was saying no. And this was all on the Skype. She was made to walk nude in her room, turn, spread her arms, spread her legs. And that entire video has been captured. And now that video is out. This is
quite certain, like, the impact, as what even Gautam Patel sir was explaining, that, being treated as a data subject and as a human being whose data is being misused left, right, center. Today, the mapping of the data, the way it's leading to digital arrests, like the case which I mentioned where a loan was taken, the case which he's mentioning, wherein a lady was paraded naked, on the basis of information they already possess about her, because you are mapped to a great extent. So you tend to believe the person in front of you because he knows so much about you already. There's this very interesting loan recovery mechanism which has started. So multiple cases I have come across where loan recovery guys actually seem to know everything about the individual, where the person is going, what are they doing, to the extent of whom they are talking to, literally in a mechanism of stalking. So the moment an individual downloads the loan app,
right,
thereafter, there is a methodology by which the entire contacts of a person are synced up.
Yes.
There's a complete stalking of the individual happening. And if the person defaults in the loan, the entire trauma starts for them. So, if you will also throw light on these kind of cases and, how exactly the importance of the law in preventing something like this, why the act is coming a very appropriate time in preventing these kind of real world crimes.
But then I don't think so this particular act, does much for the data subjects as such. See, firstly, we call it the DPDP Act. I think I want to call it the AMBP Act. Why that? 26 times in this act it is said, as may be prescribed in future. 26 times.
No, but there is a reason for that, because technology is very, very dynamic. Today, if you define, like one of the major
26 times,
issues,
Puneet?
There is a major issue with the Information Technology Act today, that the whole concept of information technology has changed from when the act was enacted. And India being a democracy, it takes a very long time for a single amendment to be passed, a very long time and debate for any rules underneath to that to be implemented. So as prescribed by the government is the only way that, for example, the white list and the black list. So based on the situations in the country.
That is absolutely okay. When we are talking about countries, we are very clear that, okay, we also know that there will be a whitelisting mechanism. We also know which of our neighbors won't be there. You can't transfer the data. All that is absolutely okay. But for all other kind of things also. Moreover, just look at this also. You're taking a penalty of 250 crore. At the end of the day, who's being harmed? The data subject, the data principal. What is that person getting in that case?
So
look at the laundry brand thing.
Yes.
Suppose if it had to happen, let's say, even after the rules have come up. The rules will come out after the elections. This is what the Honorable Minister has said. So let's say even if it comes up in December, Jan, whenever, And if after that point of time, a similar incident with another lingerie brand happens, who's the victim? The lady. What is she getting? Imagine like she getting calls and somebody like trying to harass her, saying, how's the freight, blah, 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 and all that. Just the trauma that she will go through. What is in for her?
Yeah, she will have to go through a multi-pronged approach of litigation, the entire three-pronged approach of the FIRs, the compensation, civil compensation separately for the harassment as what Justice Gautam Patel was talking about, limitation of liability, the open ends of liability, where, organizations have not yet really
And will it be easy for her?
Will it be easy
Especially
for her?
for a woman?
Yes, yes. So it will be a multi-pronged approach towards litigation that will have to be implemented by the lady also. And yes, for that, education of individuals and data subjects is something which is of key importance, which I think
No,
people...
in that case, no. 1 minute. I don't agree to this. See, it's a debate, so please don't mind. We are very good friends, okay? Hamara aise hi chalega. You just tell me in that case, what awareness, what should she do in that case? Give her a different name to herself? That can't be possible. How will he deliver? For whatever reasons, give a different number, give a different email ID. Okay, another email ID can be done. How much can you make somebody so aware? I think the problem in our country right now is we are putting the onus on individuals. It cannot be done. You can't. Up till few years back, we would say, don't share OTP. The hackers came up with something new. They said, okay, download any days, quick support. Now my father will say, अभी तू कल तो बता के गया OTP मत शेयर करना, मैंने कहाँ शेयर किया? अभी मैंने ये डाउनलोड किया. अब मैं बोलूँगा नहीं ये डाउनलोड नहीं करना, अभी AI से कॉल आता है उनको, hi I'm your banker and blah blah blah, बोलेंगे अभी ये सब मेरे को क्या मालूम है? What is this deep fake? What is this AI and all those? How are we expecting everyone?
So that is exactly why the entire onus is on an organization. So under
Exactly
the
my
DPP Act,
point.
the entire onus of compliance is resting on an organization to provide that safe environment to an individual. So if you're collecting their data, there's a very high level of responsibility placed upon the organization's hands to ensure that. So I'll give you one simple example. When we talk of a data breach policy or a data breach framework, how many organizations have already empaneled you as an investigator in the situation a data breach occurs? So that is what we call proactive data incident management. So what tends to ideally happen in our country is that after a data breach occurs, they'll start Googling or they'll ask 10 references. Who is there? Somebody will say, okay, Ritesh is there. Okay, let me call. What is your quote? What is your charges? They, about, as what Mr. Hiten was asking the question about 72 hours, why does that seem less in our country? So why is it that we do not have proactive empanelment? Why is it we do not have these plans in place? So as a matter of fact, when we are looking at this sort of compliance, ideally the vendors should also be in place. So what is data disaster management plan without having the members of the plan? This is a very interesting question I ask organizations. They say, can you draft a policy, a data disaster management plan or policy? Okay, we'll draft that policy, but what is the value of that policy if the investigator, the lawyer, the PR, the person who's going to have the upward-downward communication in your organization, if they are only not in place, they have not practiced your policy, you don't have them onboarded, what is the policy meant for? So unfortunately, today organizations are running. They have policies, paper policies, but is it actually implemented? So this is a very simple question. Even the law is saying you need to have a data protection framework. Now, how should this framework ideally be? It should have human beings in it. It cannot be a paper framework. You cannot run when the incident happens to start engaging human beings. So organizations, unfortunately, look at a lot of compliances as a cost. So if you engage a human being, there are retainers involved. So the whole concept that works is, if it happens, then we see. So people don't tend to take that as an expense or take that as an investment, that if it happens, when it happens, then how will I see, is the first question that should come. In 72 hours, how will I see? When I'm just going to try to draw the dots together. So I think the major onus here is lying on organizations which are having a lot of paper compliance. Do you think SMEs and MSMEs can survive this?
It's going to be very difficult for them, and of course they don't have a choice, because if you want to be in the digital world and everything is digitized, you don't have a choice. But the thing is, for them, I think a lot of time should be given. 1 year, maybe 2 less.
But do you still think they can be compliant, like considering small insurance agents, a large,
yes.
Today we are talking about insurance companies having data. Today,
Yes.
there are a large number of insurance agents which have data. There are smaller IT vendors which have data. There are so many people having data. So what are your views on that, Ritesh?
So the thing is, solved a lot of cases for MSMEs. So I know, number one, cost is the biggest factor. Second, they give a damn for the data. कि हाँ, कोई लेके जाके क्या करेगा?
That is why they are the sitting ducks for it also.
Exactly. Third, their attitude is, जब होगा तब देखा जाएगा. जब हो जाता है ना, तो वो लोग का भी attitude क्या होता है? जो हो गया सो हो गया. This is how they work, and this is the circle they will always keep moving in. But now with this, they have just no choice. But the thing is, are we really going to be very harsh on them? I mean, we are talking about a minimum penalty of 50 crore in some cases. Then we have 250 crores if you have not implemented even reasonable security practices. So they don't have. For them, what is a cyber security? One antivirus, which is never updated, which is outdated, or which is pirated. Okay? ये तीन में से एक sure रहता है. Firewall, oh yes, पढ़ा है, आया है, plug में लगाया, इनको लगता है firewall चल गया. Policies ही नहीं defined होती है. When we go to audit, firewall की policies कहाँ हैं? There are no policies defined only. So the firewall is just kept, and I am talking about, let's say, for example, one of the German companies, which is there in India, and I went, I said, where are the rules? Where are the policies? What policies? Here, ISO policies. I said, firewall policies. So they don't even understand that basic kind of thing. But as far as now this thing is concerned, the government will have to show through the bigger organizations that we are serious about it. We have penalized some particular thing. And that's the reason, I was like very pro the 2018 one of Justice Sri Krishna, wherein 2% of the turnover, or 4% of the turnover.
That was more GDPR like.
Yeah, but that was making sense, because you just can't go and say, okay, hey, listen, Ritesh Bhatia, 5 crores. भाई मेरा टर्नओवर ही 1 करोड़ है, 5 करोड़ पागल कहाँ से दूंगा मैं? वो तो उधर ही हार्ट अटैक का क्या जाएगा मैं? फिर गवर्नमेंट को मेरे को देना पड़ेगा.
See, but there are challenges to the turnover model also. If you see, the GDPR has faced that. See, in the case of very big organizations with declared turnovers, declared profits are there, declared turnovers, challenges where there are you could say, subsidiaries within an organization, what you would classify as the average group turnover, individual organizational turnover.
Puneet, how many such organizations are there? What percentage do they form?
You could say about a 3%, 5%
3%.
total. Yes.
You also know that like 90% of the economy of the country is run by small to medium businesses.
So do you think this law is targeting the bigger organizations first?
Yeah, I fully agree. It is completely targeting only and only the bigger organizations. They have not kept the 90% of the population of the ones who are doing businesses in mind.
In a way, even I think of it from that perspective, because if you see, the nature of liability that is imposed is on a data controller. Yeah. That is the bigger organizations which are deciding the data that is being collected, and normally it is the data processors who are the smaller individuals. So the entire onus of liability under the Act is on a data controller. So even if, let's say, the data processor suffers a data breach, it is the data controller who's going to be pulled up.
But then that controller will go to the processor and he will
can
try to recover
recovering.
from there.
At a later stage, after he has paid those penalties, he can try prosecuting for civil recovery. So yes, in a way, the major target is the bigger organizations which are determining the collection of data, the purpose of collection of data. And in a way, I think, in a way, this is also a methodology wherein bigger organizations have to have very strong vendor checks, vendor audits. So the only way I think the smaller organizations in the chain will become compliant is when the bigger organizations start imposing it, maybe make some investments on vendor education about this subject, get them abreast with compliance.
I think what they also...
For their own benefit. That is for their own benefit. So that the bigger organizations don't end up getting prosecuted in the process of a lapse happening from the chain that you're dealing with, the chain of vendors, which are smaller organizations.
I mean, you look at those small diagnostic centers all across. You look at pharmacists. Okay, you look at educational institutions. Imagine what will happen with them. An educational institution will lose, let's say some student data goes out. Now over there, the penalty is now up to 500 crores. I mean, except for that one school in BKC, right?
Yes.
खैर उसको तो कोई हाथ भी नहीं लगाएगा वो बात अलग है okay उसको तो कोई हाथ भी नहीं लगाएगा. Now what about them?
Yes.
Think about your school, think about your college, think about all of these people. How will they implement what? And you are expecting
I guess
these.
that is where the whole up to 500 crores. So
No,
to some extent,
okay.
there's going to be a formula mechanism over
Fine,
here.
okay, no, up to. Chalo now, okay, keep the money thing aside. What about vendor? What is it? Data protection impact assessment.
Yes.
Right?
That is mandated.
DPO. And certain another data assessment, then data mapping, data policies, all those things. We are talking about so many things in that you are expecting that doctor also in that case to be doing it. Doctor बोलेगा भाई computer side पे रख, पुराना time का typewriter लो, ये ले तेरा prescription, लेके जा. कार्बन कॉपी में लगा के रखा हुआ है, साइड पे रख देता है वो प्रिस्क्रिप्शन अपना. Today he is putting it in his computer. Whenever you go back to him, he just looks at his records. He's not exempted from that, but he's holding very, very sensitive
data. And the kind of risks like what we see digital murders happening are also emanating from these smaller diagnostic centers, sometimes from bigger hospitals which don't have medical practices.
The biggest breach happened with a hospital जिसका नाम के अंदर ही breach है. The Breach Candy Hospital. The Breach Candy Hospital, MRIs, CT scans, all those prescriptions, all were breached. And imagine kiska. There were politicians, celebrities. Imagine the impact it will have.
Just to explain to the audience the impact, though in India we don't have any documented digital murders, globally there have been documented digital murders. Now the reason that's documented there and not here is because of the chain of investigation. We have not yet linked a incident happening in a hospital to the background of where tech could have gone wrong, where the data could have been breached. Unfortunately, many times the law enforcement doesn't have the knowledge to, link those aspects together. We just consider it to be a death of negligence, or we consider it to be a death out of, wrongful medication being provided, or in the situation of, let's say the machinery in the hospital not operating. Now, globally, there has been a large number of reported cases wherein there have been cases where, where the drug which is given to a person changed. Now that drug changed not because of the mistake of a doctor or a nurse, but because the database in the hospital is altered with respect to that patient, knowing that they have an allergic reaction to that particular drug. Apart from that, there have also been cases wherein there have been instances like, wherein there have been certain machineries in hospitals. Nowadays, a lot of machineries are also operated with the internet connection. So there have been instances of lapses in the machinery, many times support systems on which people are in hospitals, and critical machinery. Now, how many of these lapses are genuinely mapped to these being targeted cyber incidents, targeted threats to particular individuals? I will not name the particular politicians, but there was a very leading case of a politician of a well-renowned country wherein also there was an attempted attack on him when he was in a hospital in such a nature. So I'm sure when you will Google that, you will just come to know who he was and what had happened. So today, all of us visit hospitals, all our data is there. So the impact and the importance of compliance of an organization and ensuring the compliance down the chain is extremely important, whether small, big or large. With this, Ritesh, if you could please give your closing remarks on this also, that how do you see the way ahead for organizations under this act? What do you see as the near future in the next 5 years?
As far as the act
As
is
far as the investigation, law enforcement over here is concerned. You deal with the law enforcement, you deal with the investigation agencies, you deal with organizations where you do the private investigations for them. 5 years, what do you see the future to be?
I see you growing 10 times.
Okay.
You will have a lot of money, you will have a lot of cases. You will be all across fighting for all these people. That is one. Of course, I'll be doing the investigations. And, but you know, when you're talking about the digital murder, before I give my closing remarks, I also want to tell, why not the DPDP could be also a digital murderer in this case? Yeah, I mean, you know, see, there is one section, 36. एकदम गवर्नमेंट ने बरोबर नंबर भी दिया 36 का आंकड़ा बोलते हैं ना, वहीं पे बोला है that we have the power to seize everything, to stop the processing and all. Imagine certain breach, certain leak happens because of the organization, and now it's a small nursing home, and you shut down all its system. Something happens to the patient. Wouldn't this be also called as a digital murder in that case?
Well, actually, the risk of it being available, it's like a, what do you say, the way doctors talk about it, na? Whether you bend on this side of the risk or that side of the risk, you are between the devil and the deep blue sea. So I guess for the organization that, you know, the data is available all over the internet and, you know, multiple people can access it to, let's say the patient probably having physical data or the hospital eventually will maintain a physical record. So it's like balancing of benefit and liability and risk.
So see, again, we are going back to the physical
We are going back to the physical world to a great extent.
And it is a great thing to do. Imagine LastPass, whom we trusted so much for storing all our passwords, got breached.
Yes.
So again, we are back to the pen and diary. So the clock always comes back to 12. We are always now back to our copper bottles, copper glasses. So we are coming back to all that. So, you know, I think the typewriters will also come back. But as far as the closing remarks is concerned, I would just suggest that since most of you are from the organizations, number one, please, like, you know, implement some privacy enhancing technologies. You really don't need tools. The only tool you need is a common sense. Like, for example, in the case of the laundry brand, fine, they took your name, they took your email ID, address, blah, 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 everything. That entire thing was stored in one table. Why? Please store personal information in one table, product information on another table, and, you know, the payment information in the third table.
Yeah, and anonymize the data. That's the simplest method, actually.
Or anonymize it. I'm saying just have a practice. So the thing is, if the country is very, very serious, which I don't see that seriousness over here, the first thing for the organization, they would have mentioned privacy by design, privacy by default.
Oh, well, that is there. It is read into that.
Where?
So as a matter of fact, data protection impact assessments, you are mandated to do it every time you are launching a new product, implementing any new system or technology in your organization, every time you are amending an existing technology and making it an offering.
Wasn't it clearly mentioned in the 2018 one as a separate thing that it is so important? That's why I'm saying.
Yes, but here it's as an assessment mandatory. So you need to submit those reports to the board and accordingly
you know, the moment had you put it as a separate, you know, even in the introduction, if those you would have said, whenever designing a product or software or anything, please have privacy in design and privacy by default, and and a small explainer. They have given other illustrations, a loan, this thing, other thing. They could have done that.
So they wanted to keep the jobs of lawyers also alive. If everything is so explicit, then you would not really require.
See, this is what happens when you don't take me in the committee, na?
So there have to be multiple people kept alive in the system and the ecosystem, isn't it? So if everything is so explicit, then things would be very, very
Okay,
different.
but anyway, now I can't resist the chole bhatures. It's smelling awesome since long, and MCA Club, of which I'm a member, has some amazing chole bhatures. I'm not sure about the right
So I will
pasta
not
over
keep
there.
the audience also from the food now. And with this, we come to an end of the fireside chat.
Yeah, and we can have questions around over lunch if you don't mind.
Yes. So thank you very much,
Thanks,
Ritesh.
Puneet.
Thank
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.